you say it has not been easy, is it because of our cultural values and the way we were brought up?
Well, what I can say is the perception. If I may take you through, for example, at early childhood, like in early primary school and all that, rarely do people or students or pupils are introduced into that concept of snail. It's just merely mentioned. Unlike, for example, in other livestock, like poultry, rabbits, and all that. So we as children, for example, when we were growing, we really used to appreciate that. So when all of a sudden now you are told these snails that used to be mentioned just briefly can be used as a source of food, it's a little bit difficult for somebody to understand. So culturally, in terms of perception, has been a major issue.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, I've accepted to do this. What is the procedure? What do I need to know?
Good. What I would like to mention is that snails are considered as wildlife, and therefore they are normally regulated by the Kenya Wildlife Act. Normally, the Kenya Wildlife Act states that, in a nutshell, for you to engage in that kind of a game, because in this case it can be considered as a game, you have to be trained first. You have to demonstrate that you have the knowledge and the skill. After you have been trained, for example, in our place or any other competent trainer who has been registered by the Kenya Wildlife, KWS, then you are supposed to proceed and request for a permit. Thereafter, of course, they will interrogate you and they will test you. But of course, if you have gone through the training, then it becomes easier for them. Thereafter, now, when you have the permit, now you can start engaging, coupled with the training and the skills you acquired. So you must have the skills on how to put up a structure, what you call a snailary. You have to know how to feed them. You have to know how to incubate the eggs. You have to know how, for example, to milk the slime, and probably how to prepare them for sale. Okay. All this is actually covered under training. And it is believed by the time you get the permit, you actually know what you are engaging in.
Okay.
Yes.
So how long does this training take?
We have tried to take into consideration the farmer's busy schedule and, of course, the approximate time period that a farmer can acquaint himself. Of course, this is a basic introduction. Farmers learn on the site. It's called a hands-on. But basically, we give a training of 3 days, and thereafter, we monitor our farmers to ensure that they don't go astray.
Okay.
Yes.
So, how many species of snail are there that can be farmed?
Good. We can categorize snails into the gland snails, because those are the ones that normally are considered edible or of economic importance, because snail can be either aquatic, semi-aquatic, and land. So with respect to the lands, like I mentioned, they can be either temperate. Those ones are the ones found in the Western countries like Germany, Austria, France, Spain, and we have the African or the tropical snails. Now, if I'm to talk about the species that are found in the tropic that can be farmed, there are 3 broad categories. One, generally they are referred to as giant African land snail. Now, within the giant African land snail, we have 3 categories. That is the Achatina achatina, which is commonly found in Ghana. Then we have the Achatina marginata. And then, of course, we have subspecies of the same. They are commonly farmed and found in Nigeria and part of Cameroon and Togo. And then, of course, we have the Achatina fulica, which is a common East African species found mostly in Kenya and our neighboring country, Uganda.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what does it take? What is the cost of setting up a snailary?
Thank you very much. The startup cost, one of the advantage of snail farming is actually it is low in terms of capital investment. Why? Because snails tend to multiply very fast. Because in terms of their fecundity, that is the egg laying, they tend to lay as many as 300 eggs in a season. So if you have, for example, 15 snails, it means you can multiply this with a capacity of 300. That's quite enormous. So, if I'm to give a generalized amount of startup for a simple farmer who wants to start and then upscale, putting into consideration the housing, the feeding, and of course the person who will be handling or even costing labor, and of course the breeding stock which you will acquire, an income, a capital of between 30 to 50,000 is commensurate. Yes. Of course, this is an average depending on your scale. If you want to start small, but of course, there are those who want to start a bit higher so that they can also be able to reap maximum profit.
Economies of scale.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So let's say, for example, I want to start. Is there, no, let's talk first about, you talked about they lay about 300 eggs in a season. When you say a season, that is how long?
At about 3 months.
So every 3 months?
Yes, but snails are very unique. Snails are considered hermaphrodite in the sense that each individual snail is capable of laying eggs. However, in some species, for example, the Achatina marginata, we found that from our research, in one time period, they become female. Okay. Then the following season, they become male. So if, for example, they lay within the first 3 months, then they can take another 6 months or so to do another laying, and they lay to a maximum of 3
So in
seasons.
A year, they can lay twice?
Yes, they can lay maximum of 3, and then they die.
Okay.
Because laying of those kind of numerous amount of eggs takes a lot of energy, and most of them do not survive after such kind of 3 laying seasons.
Okay.
Yes.
So can I also breed my own?
Yes, why not?
How?
Once you get the permit from Kenya Wildlife, let's start from there because you have to be legalized. Then you need to get the breeding stock. This breeding stock, you can either get it from the forest, if you are able to identify the species, or of course contact those experts, people who have been involved in snail farming. For example, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. If you have your own breeding stock, what they are called point of lay, these are snails that have matured and they're about to start laying, or they have already started laying. You now collect them, put them in a hatching box where they start now laying eggs. You collect those eggs, you put them in an incubator. There's a special kind of an incubator regulated with moisture and temperature. And then from there you multiply, because they will lay, they will hatch, they will grow, and then from there you select the next breeding stock from the ones that you already have in terms of size, in terms of the shell characteristic, and so on. So you can maintain your breeding stock year in, year out.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do I feed them again?
Wonderful. Good question. Snails are herbivore, if I may say. That means they mainly consume plant or plant-based products. That is, of course, with supplements of minerals and vitamins. Snails consume our normal kitchen products. For example, sukuma wiki, kales, that's kales. We have spinach, we have lettuce. They like lettuce a lot. They like watermelon, they like banana. And you don't have to feed them with what you consume as the premium part. They can even take the peels. For example, the banana, they take the peels. Then, of course, you can feed them on cabbages. The only thing they do not want is salt. And, of course, the food must be hygienically clean. In other words, you can collect products from the market, the leftovers, but they must be hygienically clean so that you don't contaminate. So basically, any other plants that is consumed by a herbivore can also be consumed by snail, apart from the ones with the spikes, because they hate that kind of, because it creates a lot of irritation when they are in their mobility.
Okay.
Yes.
Can they be kept in every part of this country, or there are particular regions where they do much better? Good question.
Snails are cold-blooded animals. Therefore, they prefer cool and moist environment. High temperature accelerate the growth, especially for the juveniles, the young ones. However, a temperature of about 15 to 25. For the young ones, 25 degrees centigrade. For the mature ones that are about to start laying eggs, 15, with an average of 21. However, despite that disparity, it means there are some places that maybe naturally they may not be able to perform well. However, with technology, it is possible to mimic or to adapt an environment so that it can suit what actually they can be able to survive in. For instance, if I'm in Machakos, which is a bit warmer, and I want to rear snails. It's very simple. I'll look for an equipment, and then I'll try to regulate the temperature and the humidity. If I cannot be able to have those very expensive equipment to modify the temperature and the humidity, then I can try to grow some bananas. I can grow some vegetation. That aspect of vegetation will create a microclimate almost or near the optimal temperature for snails to perform better.
Okay.
And therefore, it is possible to grow them anywhere within the country because of technology and innovation.
Okay.
Yes.
I also understand soil is important, and I was wondering why do I need soil when I'm keeping or producing my snails?
Oh, good question. Snails naturally get water from soil. They also feed on the dirt and also lay their eggs inside the soil. And more importantly, when the environmental conditions are not conducive, they also burrow themselves there. So soil is very critical. Now, there are two major factors that are very critical in soil. One, soil characteristics. That is, a soil that is very much in clay is not very suitable for snail. Why? Because when it rains, it becomes flooded, so the amount of oxygen is less. And since these are land snails, then they may not survive very well. Again, a sandy soil may not be the best because during the time of drought, they tend to lose a lot of moisture because of higher drainage. So that may mean snails need water, not so much because of their moist skin. So under such condition, when the soil is very sandy, then it means they are suffering because much water is drained. So a loamy soil would be the best. In Kenyan situation, we have found from our trial, farmers who use forest soil, soil with high organic matter, with good proportion of sand, clay, and silt, has been found to be very, very important for snail farming in terms of fecundity, in terms of their growth, and in terms of even the rate at which they reach maturity. Another aspect which is very important when it comes to soil is the treatment. Soils are born to contain microorganisms, they contain some pests. So this soil must also be treated. So
Treated
before you introduce any snail into either a snail pen or even a greenhouse. Yes.
Okay.
So soil property and soil treatment are very key when it comes to snail farming.
Okay.
Yes.
Talking of a greenhouse, is that one of the housing? How many types of housing do we have for the snails?
Good question. Snail farming can be categorized into three. We have the free-range system, we have the intensive system, and the semi-intensive system. The free-range system is where you just have an enclosure. For example, you get an area that has vegetation, and to avoid them escaping, because snails naturally are not domesticated. So one of the features is that you must ensure that they are escape-proof. So you enclose an environment where there is vegetation, or you introduce the vegetation by yourself. That is more or less like a free range. They mimic the normal natural habitat where snails normally grow and reproduce in their natural habitat. That is one. The second one is where you use the snail pens, where maybe you create those buckets, you create those boxes in terms of wooden, or even the stone pens. They can be either above the ground or below the ground. And then, of course, you have in between. That is, you have a pen, either in a greenhouse or outside, and then the snails are normally hatched there. After that, they are taken care of for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then they are later transferred now to the free-range system. So it borders the two. Either the fully ones that are normally controlled in terms of either the box, either the bucket, either the greenhouse itself, or either the wooden structure, and the free range. Then we have in between.
Okay.
Yes.
So all these types of housing, you will teach them during the training?
Exactly.
Okay.
We do take them through. In fact, it's a very broad topic, housing or snailery. And that is very critical when you are applying for a permit, because the point is, how will you ensure that these snails do not escape? And at what level are you going to control their movement, and to what extent? This is all about housing.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the cost of the training?
The university, Jomo Kenyatta University, of course, charges farmers a little bit of something small, although that is not the interest of the university, because we realize that farmers, when they are asked to pay something small, they become more committed. And this is because they need also a certificate that they have to present. However, a farmer may not necessarily pay the full amount on before they train. Since we also purchase product from them, then they are expected, for example, if they cannot fully pay. So the university charges a very small amount, that is 10,000 shilling, which the farmer can either pay off upfront, or when they are supplying the product to us, because we buy from them, we can deduct so that it can justify the cost of that particular training certificate.
Okay.
Yes.
So apart from the certificate, what else will KWS be looking for?
The certificate is only to give them an idea that this particular farmer has been taken through the training and what it takes to do snail farming. And of course, pardon? What else?
What else do KWS need apart from a certificate that have been trained?
They also need that the farmer to convince them that they are capable of actually rearing the snail. For example, they will also check the housing structure. And then, of course, they will ask the farmer, after you rear the snails, where are you going to take them? Because their worry is that you might multiply them, then there is no market, or you are not able to supply them for the final exit, then what happened to them? They might end up in people's shamba, and that can create a lot of trouble. Always, as an entrepreneur, always start snail farming if you know where you are going to take them after they are mature.
Okay.
Yes, that's the bottom line.
So when they are mature, how long do that take for them to mature?
Good question. Different species take different time to mature. For instance, the achatina, the ones that are found in Ghana, they are bigger, they lay fewer eggs, but they take longer to mature, up to almost 16 months. The Achatina marginata, the one that is found in parts of Togo, Nigeria, and part of Cameroon, they tend to grow not slow as the ones in Ghana, but not as fast as the ones that are found in Kenya and Uganda. They take about 10 to 13 months or thereabout. And of course, we have the ones that are very invasive, the Achatina fulica, that are commonly found in Kenya and Uganda. Those ones take a very short time to mature. That's why they can easily invade, and that's why you see so many of them, especially during rainy season. Them, they take approximately 6 to 9 months for them to be ready for harvesting and marketing.
Okay.
Yes.
Do they also have predators, pests, and diseases that affect them?
Yes. Thank you. That is a very good question, because every creature God created it's like every creature that God created has its own natural enemies. I think it's a matter of what you call an ecosystem balance. So even in snail, we have predators, pests, and diseases, namely the following: lizards. In fact, when you have a snail pen, you'll always see lizard loitering around. So that is one of the best way to ensure that you have a very good housing structure. 2, they have ants. Ants are also very notorious. They also have certain kind of flies which lay eggs, and then when those eggs hatch, they form maggots that start feeding on those snails. Of course, we have also birds, for example, the ones that are found in, what do you call the ones that normally, the butter. Do you call them the butter? The ones with
the ducks.
Yes, the ducks. The ducks also are considered a major predators. Of course, we have other micro, but those are the major common predators that we have. Now, when it comes to diseases, there are 2 major diseases. One is a disease that affects the brain development of the snail. It's called encyclos something. The name is a little bit missing, but it's a bacterial disease that has been found actually to damage the brain cells of the snail, that making them to be disoriented, and finally coma and death. And then we have also a fungi which also affect them. So those are the major challenges when it comes to snail farming with respect to pests, predators, and diseases.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. We'll take a short commercial break.
Yes.
But when you come back, I want you to, we'll keep on the diseases, the two diseases.
Okay.
Maybe you can tell us when we come back how to treat those two.
Okay.
Okay. For our viewers back at home, today we are talking about snail production or snail farming. And today with studio to help us unpack this conversation is Dr. Paul Kinoti, who is the coordinator from the Bio-Snail project at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Science and Technology. Please, don't go away. We'll be back in a few.